Alright, what's up everyone? Basically, I have been doing a lot of London photography recently, and I have decided to shift the way that I look at things. I used to do a lot of night photography in London, but it just used to be the same black sky with the same city lights, and it was more or less the same shot that I would get with every other photographer out there. So I started looking into sort of ways and inspiration about how I can improve my photography. And I've stumbled across one photographer that I found through F-Stoppers, and it was Elia Locardi. He has sort of came up with this thing. Well, I don't know if he's come up with it, but he's definitely made it popular amongst my sort of photography circle. That what he does is called a technique called time blending, or what he calls moments in time. What it is, it's basically the concept that you capture the same landscape, but at different points of the day with the different lighting, and then you blend all those perfect elements of the scene into one photo. Now, this for me was sort of like a big sort of an epiphany about how I should look at photography, because when you take a photo, it's literally just a snapshot, and within that snapshot you capture that one moment. But when you're watching a sunset, you get different elements from different points of the evening which showcase a beautiful scene. So what I mean specifically, as you can see in this example here, the first image that I've got up on the screen, let me just scroll back, because this is this time-lapse sequence that I've done a couple of weeks ago. Now the first shot here, if I just sort of focus on this area, there's not much going on. Yes, it's beautiful architecture, but there's not much going on. Maybe it's a bit of sunlight kissing this building here, and the sky, interesting clouds, but not too exciting. So if I scroll further down in towards the sequence later on, and you'll see in the timeline at the bottom that there is some colour coming into the sky. But if I just jump the gun and go straight to a part where there's a good amount of colour, so if I go to about here, you'll see, I'll explain why there's virtual copies in later on, but it's not important at the moment. So some of these shots, obviously, for this time lapse, because I think I forgot to turn off IBIS, so some of them came out a bit blurry, so we'll just look beyond that. This time lapse didn't really work out well, but I can link it to the bottom. I did export it, but it's not it wasn't the best time lapse. So when this picture finally renders, if it ever will, should I be impatient? There we go. Now, if we compare it to the previous image before, you see now there's more colour in the sky. So just hypothetically speaking, like I'm looking at this scene, I'm thinking that is the most beautiful point in the day for the sky. So I'll capture that. And then if I go later on, now you can see that the sky has started to, the colour has sort of faded away. It's still somewhat there, but it's faded away. And now the building lights are turning on. They're not fully on at the moment, but they're turning on. So if I scroll further down to this area, now this is basically blue hour. And now you can see the lights more or less are all on. I think this one's one of the blurry ones. Sorry about that. Let me just go back to this one. When this renders, yeah, that's a bit sharper. But as you can see, now all the city lights are on, but now the sky's gone. So the concept of time blending is where you get to keep the colourful sky, include the lights in the building, and then you capture the beautiful times of each sort of section of a sunset. So I have actually post-processed this already, but I'll just quickly show you the final edit, which is slightly back. Oh god, sorry, having a little bit of trouble with this mouse here. There. So obviously I post-processed these images, I brought out the colours a lot more, and I blended the sky that I wanted with the building lights that I wanted to create this image. So what I'm going to do, I am now going to, because I'm being a bit of a cheapskate and I'm using the in Windows screen recorder, I can only record this window. So if I export out to Photoshop to show you how I would then sort of layer and mask out the sky to the buildings and so forth, it won't show it because it's only just going to record this window. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to quickly post-process the raw files for the image, for the final image I'm going to use, and then I'll bring it into Photoshop after, and then I'll blend it together, and I'll show you my technique for blending it. There are various techniques of doing it, but the principle is what you kind of need to take away from this. I will now cut the video here, and then I'll reload it, I'll restart it, and it will basically just have the raw files that I'll be working with, and then I'll show you how I post-process those raw files, and then I'll cut the video again, and I'll put it up onto, load it into Photoshop, sorry, and then in Photoshop I'll show you how I do the layer masking. Alright, so thanks for that, see you in a bit. Alright, this is part 2 of my video. Basically in part 1, just quick overview of why I do time lapses and time blending and the principles behind it. Part 2, which is how I layer mask it. I skipped out a middle part, which for this conversation I'll say is part 1.5, and that is editing the raw files. The principle behind that is literally you just edit it. Obviously editing's a subjective thing, so you would then edit the raw files to your taste on how you want it to appear. I've added, in general, just so you know what tools I used, but obviously it's different sort of amounts of it and so forth. I used a graduated filter just to bring down the sky a little bit more, added a bit of contrast. I slid up the dehaze. There was no haze, but if I added a bit of dehaze, it brings out the colors just a bit more. It does it in a different way to contrast and saturation, and I would suggest you play with the slider yourself just to see the differences rather than hear me talk about them. Added a bit of clarity. I've done more or less the same for both images, but no graduate fill on this one. So, as you can see, if I flick back and forth, you see the beautiful parts of both images that I'm talking about, which I want in one photo. I want that sky and I want these building lights, because as you would have seen in the first part of the video when I was discussing it, if I went through the timeline and I was showing you where the part matches up to where there was some color in the sky and there was some lights in the building, there wasn't that many lights in the building and there wasn't that much color in the sky. So I've chosen these two images because this has the most color in the sky and this has most lights on. Well, technically speaking, later on in the night there were more lights on, but you come into issues of where there was no lights falling on the actual building itself, so then the lights, the dynamic range between the lights and the side of the buildings, it became too dark and bright and it just wouldn't match properly with the sunset sky. So this was the best compromise within the blue hour. So with that being said, the principles behind layers. Now, I'm kind of directing this more towards a good friend of mine, Ishmael, because he's one that kind of spurred the idea of this video. He doesn't really know much about layer masks, so sort of a quick overview on how I look upon layer masks. So basically, just imagine this is two separate, literally two photos, one on top of the other, and this one's on top. And if I've got a pair of scissors, and in this case on Photoshop, the eraser tool, and I just cut the top section out, it's revealed the bottom layer. So it's revealed what was underneath, which is this blue photo. So if I remove the bottom photo, now there's nothing on top, because this is the only photo technically here, and I've deleted the top section. I'm going to click this I button again, so then you get both of them back, and I'm going to hit undo to keep both images and both layers intact for the moment. Now that is the principle of layers. It's literally just putting one image on top of the other and removing or revealing what you want from each part of the layer. It gets a lot more complicated when you have multiple layers, so we'll just start with the basics until you get your head around the principles with just two photos. Now here's where you use layer masks, and this is what I use. You hit layer mask. Now essentially speaking, on this side here it's a blank canvas, and what the blank canvas is going to reveal, if I hit the paint brush tool and select black, it's a white canvas. So if I paint, just imagine now this is now painting a white canvas on top of this image, and whatever I paint is going to reveal the bottom layer. So if the reason why I prefer using this is if I make a mistake, it's much easier to go to the white tool, the white brush, and just paint back what you were missing. Now this is more sort of elegant way of doing things rather than using the eraser tool and then undo. So I will stick with the layer masks, and with that being said, I am now going to start painting in. Now I'm doing this the quick down and dirty way. This will get you decent results for not much effort. So as you can see, I just paint a bit more fine tune towards the edge, and I'm getting the building lights that I wanted. So what you do is just simply you go through and then you paint all the areas that you wanted, or where there are available building lights. So as you can see, I started to paint high, but there was nothing there, there was no lights. And obviously, like I said, this is a very lazy way of doing things, because really and truly you should be marking out the areas a lot more elegantly. Not important, obviously it's down to, it's very subjective how much effort you want to put into it, but for this tutorial I'm just showing the principles, not actually doing the work. Now here's one little thing that with this particular scene you've got to bear in mind, is that St. Paul's, when the lights turn on, they tend to blow out. So what I'll do here, I'll lower the opacity of my brush. I'll bring it down to about 50%. If you'll let me. So now it's just not going to be as harsh as me painting on as before. So I just want to add a kiss of light, because I don't want to blow it out completely, because I think in the blue frame it is a little bit blown out. So there. So that is the quickest way of doing it. Now, just to quickly run through one more thing. If I was to start over, let me just do it this way. If I was to literally just, need to be 100 for that. If I just literally wipe out these lights completely, now we start over. Another way you can do it, which is a bit more elegant, you can get the polygon tool or magnet tool, however, whatever tool you want, but you're selecting out areas. You can then go through, zoom in 1 to 1, go pixel to pixel around the buildings here. I'm not doing that obviously, but you can go through, and I'll do a rough cut here just to show you later why this could be very handy. As you can see, it's not the nicest drawing, but done. If I now hit the brush tool and I'm trying to paint above, it won't let me. But if I paint like that, you'll see it magically appear in a second. Oh wait, hold on. That would help. Let's pretend that didn't happen. As you can see, like painting up here, nothing happening. Paint directly right down across, and now you see the bottom image coming, and that's because whatever's within the selection, it will paint. So, what is good for you? What would be a good thing for you to do when you go through your edit is you use these tools up here and mark out pixel to pixel along the edges. And I would suggest you using a relatively big brush with very little hardness for a better feather. So that way, when you do come close to the edges, let's just do this again. Let's just get rid of everything that I painted. And now, if I show you one more time, if I paint close to the edges like this, now I'm not going to bleed into the sky, and the feather will give me a soft edge so you don't get no haloing on the edge of this building. That is why I would suggest you using the selector tool to go around the image first and then paint. But as you saw previously, you can actually get away with a quick down and dirty way of doing it. I'll even do it again for you now as it's so quick. Just paint roughly where you want the building lines. You don't even have to do them all to get the effect. It just depends on if you're trying to sell your image, just have it for yourself. And let's bring that down to, I think, 40% this time. Yeah, just a nice little kiss stuff like that. Done. And that is essentially time blending. So let me know what you think about it at the bottom in the comment section. Let me know if you learned something from this. If you've enjoyed the video, share it, like, subscribe. Typical YouTube comments that people say at the end of their video, but you know. Anyways, that's it. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.